And we are live. Welcome to NBA Live Before Lock, Thursday, January 15th. Very interesting slate so far. Tons of ownership coming into the Dallas Mavericks, which we will address. Unfortunately, no matter what happens today, we are not going to be gifted the same thing we were yesterday, which will likely be the user's best DFS slate of the season. It's going to be hard to top what we got yesterday. Shout out Yusuf Nurkic's 20% ownership, but maybe we'll get lucky and we'll get it again today. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Follow us both on Twitter. Very simple. G. Ehrenberg DFS. Josh Engleman. I got it right out of the gate. I didn't realize I was on the bottom, but that worked out perfectly when I looked to my left. Greg, what's going on?
Yeah, we've got lots of value, lots of injury situations to talk about. We could also discuss Giannis's minutes a little bit because that'll be interesting. Glenn Rivers, dirty, filthy liar, making up minutes restrictions for Giannis the other day, which, it matters for today because now you've got all this value on this slate and you try to figure out, all right, where are we going to spend up? And how many minutes you think Giannis is going to play a massive factor in that. The other day, we find out before the game, Rivers says, hey, we're going to try. Always weird when coach says, we're going to do our best. Who knows what happens, but we're going to try to limit Giannis to 30 to 31 minutes. What ends up happening? We're at halftime. He's played 20 minutes. And then the game ends up being a blowout. He still ends up playing 32 minutes. So over his minutes restriction and doesn't even play the final 8 or 9 minutes of the game. So I think his minute ceiling, the floor is probably that 30 to 31, but I think the ceiling's probably higher than what a lot of people might think. So I think he's kind of intriguing for tournaments and, of course, all the value spots to talk about.
It's truly crazy. I want to know how many minutes he was going to play if they got back into it in his last rotation. 36, 37, something. It's so preposterous. But we don't have fun payups outside of Giannis, I guess. We're SGA at 10-5 against Houston is unowned. 10-7 Cade is unowned. Jaylen Brown's getting a little juice in the spot against Miami, given the given the pace up nature for them, because Boston's as slow as it gets. Miami's as fast as it gets. Wemby's starting to bring a little bit of intrigue, but Giannis is sitting there in this spot on the opposite side of Wemby. He's getting 20% ownership right now. I could argue that it should be higher and that I like him more than I like anybody else here. Obviously, we're going to get to that. Where do you actually want to start here? Do we want to hash through the Dallas Mavericks experience? Because that seems to be the biggest, or at least one of the biggest things that we've got to do for today.
Yeah, I think we kind of have to start by talking about the value there. Obviously, everybody knew in advance that Anthony Davis wasn't going to be playing today. But in addition to that, you've got Cooper Flagg rolls his ankle last night. So that's creating also additional value there for Dallas. And then, of course, on top of it all, a great matchup against the Utah Jazz. So that is the value spot on the entire slate. That's going to, shape a lot of our lineups. There's a lot of ownership going there. Josh got it pulled up on screen. You guys could see that overall for the slate, the two most popular players right now are Brandon Williams at 63% on our last run, PJ Washington 52%. So they are the most important players on the slate.
Hey, don't stop there. 45% more for Jaden Hardy, 40 more for Najee Marshall. Gafford right now with a Q tag is 15. Clay is 15. We're waiting on a bunch of news yet. The Mavs signed Jeremiah Robinson Earl to a 10-day contract, and he is available today. So that's an added complication because he's been active enough in the NBA so far this season. He's not coming in. He could play a bunch today and it wouldn't shock me, assuming Daniel Gafford ends up out and that has to be a thing, which then complicates the rest of this center experience. I didn't know what they were going to do today when I prepped this morning. So I basically just ignored the game because I didn't know where to start. But if we get Daniel Gafford out, what the hell do you want to do with a $3,500 Dwight Powell?
He's in play. I can't imagine that I would be getting to a ton of him just because there's so much other value that exists on the slate as well. And he's, not the best fantasy producer. I do think it's notable that they signed Jeremiah Robinson, or not for him individually on the DFS slate, but because that's very much a, oh shit, we are running thin on bodies. We need to get another guy who's capable of playing NBA minutes on the roster. Because we go through the entire injury report. Gafford and also Cisse is also questionable to play in the front court, which normally wouldn't matter, but matters on a slate like this when PJ Washington, Daniel Gafford also are questionable to play. You got Max Christie. He's doubtful. Cooper Flagg, obviously, also doubtful, not expected to play. And AD also being out. So to me, them signing Jeremiah Robinson Earl kind of triggers that they're expecting at least one of these guys to sit today.
Yeah, I mean, my assumption is Gafford, one of Gafford or Cisse is not active. If Gafford is out, I think Cisse ends up active. If Gafford is able to play, then Cisse is not going to be active. I think the more complicated part gets to whether or not PJ Washington is also out. And that's where the JRE thing like really gets weird. Because they're going to play Dwight Powell a decent chunk if Gafford is out. Or they're going to go like 16, 16, 16 to Powell, JRE, and Musa Cisse today. It's a random number generator for Dallas centers if it's Gafford out and everybody else in.
The other aspect of this, too, is that PJ Washington is questionable with, it's so annoying to me when teams do this, but he's questionable with injury maintenance. Because this is a thing where it's like, they probably know whether PJ Washington's going to be in or out, unless his status is dependent. Like maybe they feel like, hey, he's actually good enough to play, but we would like to give him the day off. But if Gafford isn't able to play, then sure, we're just going to throw PJ Washington out there. Like maybe that's why they've got PJ Washington with the questionable injury maintenance. But we've seen this. I think Minnesota's done it for the last 2 weeks, every game with Anthony Edwards, a guy who historically doesn't miss games. So some of the more frequent questionable with injury guys who are not like LeBron and Joel Embiid, but just role players who are starting to be questionable with injury maintenance. It's a little annoying to me.
Yeah. I mean, the true craziest part of all of this is that we have no idea if PJ Washington's playing today, and he's 52% owned.
Yeah.
It's not like he's just an afterthought. He's like one of the most important things that exists, and he's a coin flip in lineups, and he's a coin flip for us to know it. And we might not get this until 8:00 on the dot, potentially. This is the final game of the slate, and it is hanging giant question marks on us. Let's say we get nothing over the next 52 minutes. How do you want to approach it?
Yeah, so here's the good thing is you guys should already be getting a lot of exposure to this game. It's only super problematic who gets ruled in, who gets ruled out if you've only got like one or two guys in lineups from this game. As long as you're getting yourself exposure, like you've got Jaden Hardy, you've got PJ Washington, you've got Nurkic is somebody who also shows up in lineups on the other side of the game, who he projects really well. Maybe I'll give people some pause after last night, but Nurkic, Brandon Williams showing up in lineups. So as long as you have a decent amount of exposure to the late game and a little bit on both sides here, then you should feel pretty good that you're gonna have the flexibility to make swaps for no matter what the news ends up being.
Well, speaking of both sides, I guess I'll just add Utah to this visual for right now. Nurkic, everybody's favorite person he's my favorite person from yesterday. If you got left holding the bag on Nurkic, that's your own problem. 7,400 for him today, currently projected for 30% ownership. Keontae George is projected for 20% ownership. Then it kind of falls off. They're the only two Utah dudes getting anything. At this moment now, I have no problem soaking up that ownership and making my life easier for swaps later. I have no apprehension for either one of those things. If you don't see Yusuf Nurkic in the starting lineup, don't play him. That should just be the easiest thing to worry about.
Yeah, if Nurkic isn't starting, he probably isn't playing. That's why, yesterday we had Nurkic out of all of our data. And yeah, it was a good, it ended up being really nice. Josh and I were talking about this a little bit this afternoon. Like I didn't have great lineups yesterday. And then I was like, how did I profit? How did I profit? And you start finding there was a bunch of dead money yesterday. And that's how, even though I had subpar lineups, I was able to make a few $100s on the slate simply by just like not having Nurkic and then, swapping to some of like Filipowski. But I don't know, like I had a bunch of Jamal Shed. I had a bunch of Isaiah Collier. Shed was not awful, but certainly wasn't good relative to expectations. Isaiah Collier, he looked like a great late swap option. Didn't do shit in that game, but yeah, just not having Nurkic, the rake was paid for.
Don't be an ass, Josh. How about no tag, no nothing? Good. I wish they'd do that every day. It is a benefit to us. If you're watching this show, you should want the NBA to do that all the time. It is long-term better for you if you're playing DFS actively and using late swap tools for all of this chaos bullshit to happen. So cross your fingers for it. We want all of that nonsense. That will 20% of the field yesterday played Yusuf Nurkic. Like that is nothing you'll ever do in lineup building will give you more value than that. And it won't even be close.
The other part of it too is once he wasn't starting, you didn't even want him off the bench. And like that's the other thing in hindsight I'm kind of confused by is, okay, so even if you didn't think he was, even if you thought he was playing, but he's coming off the bench, you shouldn't have wanted him anyway.
He's a horrific play at this salary coming off the bench. Terrible. It's not like Yusuf Nurkic is 4,400 or something. And it's just like, okay, if he comes off the bench, you could still, no, he needs every bit of that. We want it all the time. It's the best. The absolute best. The Jaden Hardy ownership scares the hell out of me. 3,800, I get. Good per minute, dude, sure. 45% owned. Positive leverage, too. I'm terrified of that one in particular.
To an extent, just because he's not the best fantasy producer in the world, and also his minutes have always kind of been erratic. But if they're going to be this shorthanded, which it appears they're going to be very shorthanded, then just based on the available players they have, you have to feel at least good that he's going to get some allotment of minutes, and he's very cheap. And also, who else is creating offense for that team at this point?
That's like the thing that I'm hoping for, and sort of it sort of depends on like if PJ Washington and Gafford are both out, I don't have the same sort of nerves about Jaden Hardy. If PJ Washington and like Gafford happen to play, like he's just like, it wouldn't shock me at all if he just didn't start and they went to something else, whatever that ends up being, whether it's like back to Ryan Nembhard or they're doing something dumb with like Caleb Martin. I have no idea. That's the only one that like I get any sort of apprehension about. I trust Brandon Williams. I trust PJ Washington if he's there. I certainly trust Najee Marshall. The Jaden Hardy one, like he could go back to being a DNP and it wouldn't catch me off guard because they don't seem to like him.
Has there been any team that's gone through point guards being in and out of favor more than the Dallas Mavericks this year? They've had so many guys who they've been like, here's the, like, because Hardy, started the other day. But you think about the guys they've started at point guard where you've been convinced that like, oh, this must be their guy now. Brandon Williams, D'Angelo Russell, Ryan Nembhard. Like there were slates where Nembhard was massive chalk and people are like, look, he's just like his brother. Another Nembhard steal in the draft. And then 2 weeks later, they're like, oh, this guy's trash. We don't care about him anymore. The point guard situation's been
Dante Exum.
For Dallas.
Like there's more. Exum was like something they would have liked to be out there at the guard spot. No dice. Yeah. So the most important game for today is also the last game of the day. And that's going to be pretty fun. We also have some interesting things going on in two separate spots. The Miami Heat are a little shorthanded today, creating 45% ownership to Tyler Hero, 25 to Norm Powell, 20 more for Bam, Wiggins, Pell Larson, trickle of ownership for Nikola Jovic and Drew Smith. I think Tyler Hero might just play a ton of minutes here. How are you feeling about this Miami side going up against Boston?
All right. So talking through the Miami side of the game, let me pull up what some of my exposures are for that game. And then also letting you guys know the full injury report for the Miami Heat. Terry Rozier, he's out for today. But more importantly, Davion Mitchell and Jaime Jaquez Jr., they are both out today as well. So that's where a little bit of the value is coming from. It's not that these guys are the best fantasy producers in the world for the Heat, but Jaquez, He's their top guy off the bench, uses a decent amount of usage as well. And then Davion Mitchell, just somebody who eats up a lot of minutes in the starting lineup and has been improving over the last few seasons. He's not like a zero as he was when he was with the Kings a few years ago. So that's where some of the value is coming from the Miami Heat. And then as far as the individual guys and my exposures to them at the okay. I was trying to upload lineups and couldn't figure out what was messing up. And I just realized that I was trying to upload my DraftKings lineups into FanDuel, and that's why I kept failing. All right. Now I figured out where it is that I'm going wrong. Anyway. So
been there
$6,800, and I was panicking here for a second, Josh. And now I just figured it out. So this will be an easy solve now. So anyway, Tyler Hero is only $6,800 on DraftKings, point guard and shooting guard eligibility, and then you got Bam Adebayo at $7K. So it's not the best matchup in the world against the Boston Celtics, but for who Tyler Hero and Bam Adebayo are as fantasy producers, also Bam not even all that popular on the slate either relative to what I think he should be. They're two of my favorite non-Dallas tournament plays for today. Like Tyler Hero is just really good on a points per dollar basis. And Bam is just underpriced and underowned. Like when I saw the price point on Bam, also considering he actually played really well last game after having kind of a disappointing season, I just assumed Bam was going to be super chalk today, but not the case. I think that he's one of the more underowned players we have tonight.
Yeah, and it appears they're not really playing him alongside Khalil Ware anymore, which I think is a better situation for Bam's performance. And I think his price tag reflects lighter minutes over the past few weeks and history of playing alongside Khalil Ware significantly more frequently. I think all of these things are pointing in a great direction for him. Obviously, positive leverage right now in our tools. I'm very much team Bam. I think he looks great. I'm intrigued by like Drew Smith today in relationship to like Jaden Harvey, depending on the Mavs news. But the problem here is that like I also don't want to like lock in Drew Smith at 7:30. That's really like the bigger problem.
Yeah, so that's what I was going to say is the big issue for me is that game is, I mean, it depends when we get news. If we get a lot of news at that point, like let's say we already have all the news at, either before the slate locks or like 7:15, then you can just kind of play it straight up. And it's like, all right, here are the guys that are showing up the best in our data relative to the projections and ownership and all that. But in a scenario where all these guys are still questionable for Dallas, it's not to say that Drew Smith is unplayable. It just, to me, would become really likely that you get somebody who's going to be a better value option in the later games if players could potentially get ruled out. And then on top of the guys who are going to be lower owned than they should because of the late breaking nature of the news. So, a guy like Drew Smith, as of right now, I don't have a massive amount of interest in him, but let's say all the Dallas guys get ruled in prior to that game. Then I think it changes the scenario.
For sure. We have like the exact same situation happening in Phoenix today from an ownership perspective in comparison to Miami. Grayson Allen is 40% owned at 5,200 with guard forward eligibility. Colin Gillespie and Dylan Brooks are both 20. Jordan Goodwin, Mark Williams, Ryan Dunn, somewhere in that 10 to 15 range. And that is all happening because there's no Devin Booker today for Phoenix. Booyah still out as well with the concussion. He's been out for a minute. But Jordan Goodwin, Nigel Hayes, Royce O'Neal, all available. So we're seeing a swell of ownership here. Now, this is a 7 o'clock game. So how do you feel about the Grayson Allen piece at 40% ownership? Seems like he's just going to get enough minutes to look pretty damn good here.
So I think he's I'm a little bit underweight to the field to him. Like he looks good on a projections basis, but the ownership is kind of there to the point where, and it's not like a crazy amount, but my last run, I had 30% of Grayson Allen. So just a little bit underweight to the field. Still somebody shows up in a lot of lineups. Just the 40% ownership feels pretty high, but I think there's other pieces that are like, I don't understand why Gillespie is lower owned than Grayson Allen by such a significant amount, because it's 40% versus 24%. That's a pretty steep difference between guys who project somewhat. Gillespie projects better, but it's still like kind of comparable. I just rather roster the lower owned guy of the two of them.
I think the MPE is just doing a lot of heavy lifting here for Grayson Allen more than anything else. The fact that he can go guard forward is just so much more valuable than point guard, shooting guard in terms of the ownership. But I completely agree. I mean, we're talking about two guys with essentially the same boom score. Gillespie a little bit more expensive for that boom, but you still get a little bit of flexibility. A better per minute guy, more likely to play more minutes. I see it the same way you do. It's not that I don't like Grayson Allen. He's obviously a great play today. But Colin Gillespie looks like he's easier to get to at a lower ownership number.
Yeah, so when I look, I have them kind of like flipped relative to what their ownership projections are. So last round I mentioned I had, it was right around 30% of Gillespie, and then of Grayson Allen, and then Gillespie I get to 40% of. So I get to what Grayson Allen's ownership is on Gillespie, and then for Grayson Allen, like a little bit higher than what Gillespie's ownership is.
What about the rest of these guys? Brooks, Goodwin, Mark Williams. I mean, realistically, Goodwin feels like he could be a dude today with no Devin Booker around.
Yeah, let's see. Who do I have? I have to scroll down a little bit. Yeah, $4,400. Goodwin. I do come in a little bit overweight to the field to him. I do think that his playing time is a little bit more of a wild card compared to some of the other guys on Phoenix. But if you look at their depth chart, he should get a healthy amount of minutes for the slate. They're just thin as far as guards go, and it's a big void that Booker leaves behind as well. He's certainly not in the same tier as Grayson Allen or Gillespie in terms of just projection, but for $4,400, only 17% owned. I've got him in about a quarter of lineups right now. So I think that he is a good value option to be, not like crazy contrarian, but marginally different than where the field is.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Like in that stretch of time when Grayson Allen was out, we saw Goodwin get 28 minutes, 31 minutes, even 25 minutes, which is essentially, a little bit higher than where we have him here. I think there's some decent minutes upside. It doesn't have to be him. Like they can go a couple different directions, but given the ownership, given the price tag, would I prefer this game to not be at 7:00? Yeah, but he feels most underrepresented to me coming out of Phoenix.
I would still say still Gillespie for me, but yeah, I don't have an
close
issue
second
either.
Close second. I don't have much else to say here on the Phoenix side. Like Booker, nope. Maybe they play Mark Williams a little bit more because of no Booker. Because typically they go to a more, they go to Oso Ighodaro for defense. They go to Mark Williams for offense. But when you take Devin Booker off the floor, does that unlock a just Mark Williams plays more because they need more offense situation? It could.
I guess the other side of it too, though, is how easily is he going to be able to get his offense without there being somebody like Devin Booker to distribute the ball to him? So,
terrible matchup for him with Beef Stew and Jalen Duren on the opposite side.
We have seen that Gillespie is a really good distributor, and he's had a really strong season for Phoenix, especially in the time that he was playing staggered minutes from Booker. He's played well enough to where they play a little bit more together now, and that's cut into Booker's assist rate when Booker's actually been, out on the court and healthy. I do worry a little bit about how easily Mark Williams will get some of his buckets, though, with Booker out.
I think that's fair. Going to the rim is not going to be a great time, particularly when Beef Stew is on the floor, because outside of Wemby, he's like as good as it gets. What are you getting we haven't talked about yet?
I was just checking. I've got some of Mark Williams. I got him in a little bit over 10% of lineups, which is kind of where the field's at with him.
What sort of stand are you taking right now? Do you got anybody that you've got a decent chunk of that we haven't really talked about yet, who are some more like contrarian options that you're looking for?
So here's one, unless I'll have to check our ownership to see if this is updated at all. But on the last run that I had before we got started here, I had Jovic as somebody to be overweight to the field. So he was only 10% owned. What is his ownership now? Is that changed?
We got an ownership update. We got an ownership update right now.
Yeah, that's why I'm wondering if it's changed. Because I thought that Jovic of some of the other Heat guys, particularly with Jaime Jaquez being out. I was surprised to see him only being 10% owned. Where's he now? 6%? Yes, it's actually come down a little bit. His playing time, like, wouldn't consider him in a cash game. The playing time is really erratic for him. But you see some of these games where Jovic knocks down a couple of shots when he first checks in, then all of a sudden he's playing extended minutes, and you just figure there's more opportunity for him to get usage in that second unit with Jaquez being out. So as somebody who's well off the board, like really low owned play here, I think there's upside in him at 6% and a $4,500 price tag.
Yeah, I mean, on the 11th against OKC with Norm Powell out, that got us 25 minutes of Jovic. On the 6th, that was a game with no Jaquez. We got 26 minutes out of Jovic. Game prior to that, no Hero, no Jaquez, 26 minutes out of Jovic. Prior to that, no Hero, no Larson, 28 minutes of Jovic. Realistically, I think low 20s are in play here now that Davion Mitchell's minutes aren't there. My only concern is that they just give them to Drew Smith instead. But I mean, if he gets anything in those mid 20s, that's a dude that's wildly underowned for it.
And I think there's the potential. Yeah, I think there's the potential there. So that's somebody who we didn't touch on really at all when we were on the Heat and just looking through the lineups I've built out, who just shows up as a good contrarian play for me.
Let's take a look at. You want to talk through the pay up structure?
Yes. Also, we got a couple of questions from Discord, so I'll read those out here as well.
Okay.
Just realized that a couple of these from Larson were about golf-related stuff. But here's some NBA questions. Of course, if anybody else has questions, tag me in Discord. I'm looking out for those right now. But Larson says, center on FanDuel, does any potential Dallas value look better than Nurkic or Duren today, points per dollar? Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
So he was asking FanDuel specifically. So he asked, does any potential Dallas value look better? So here's potentially, yes. As of right now, Nurkic does look really strong on FanDuel. Duren looks okay. I'm a little concerned of what his minutes are possibly going to be today. But yeah, in a scenario here where like all of the guys are out for Dallas in the front court, like, yeah, then there could be pretty decent value that ends up popping up. It's just hard to identify who that is until we get an updated injury report for Dallas.
If Gafford is out, I don't think you want to play anybody from Dallas at center. That's for sure.
I mean, Powell would still be playable. He's not a priority play, but he's playable.
That all comes down to it. Like if Cisse is active and JRE is active, I can't imagine playing a $3,800 Dwight Powell today.
I just realized also, does any potential? So I guess he's only talking about center. I was also kind of looking at because he asked, does any potential Dallas? Yeah, I guess he's only talking about the center spot. I would say so. I like Powell. I wouldn't like him better than Nurkic, for instance, though. Still, because Nurkic is really strong option on FanDuel.
Agreed. You say we had another one?
Yeah, a couple more here. This one I have no clue. Larson wants to know any feeling on Kuzma playing or sitting. I don't have a good read on Kuzma, and I think there's some games the Bucks could leave him home and not realize he's not there. Also, I mean Kuzma's just been no good for a little while now,
and I don't even think it matters.
Yeah,
whether he plays or not, I don't think you're playing him or anybody that gets created from that.
Yeah, I have 0% of Kuzma right now, and I don't think that him being out all of a sudden be like, oh, now here, like, oh, AJ Green or so, like, nah, like none of those guys would all of a sudden show up in a bunch of lineups. J12 for Heisman, any boosts for flexibility? You should already be getting a good amount of exposure to the Dallas-Utah game. For whatever reason you're not, then make sure you do have exposure to that game, but just making sure that you've got a good amount of exposure like Jaden Hardy, PJ Washington, Nurkic, Brandon Williams, Najee Marshall, whoever it may be. Make sure those guys are in your lineups to go into the slate, and then you're going to have flexibility to make whatever swaps you want. So that's what's most important.
A light boost to like the Milwaukee and San Antonio real pieces, probably not the worst idea either. That one locks at 8 on an island. So, if you want to like set yourself up a little bit better for flexibility, depending on when that Utah Dallas news comes in, I don't hate the idea of like juicing the dudes that really play for Milwaukee and San Antonio. Like, don't get random shit, but like if it's more Wemby, if it's more Giannis, if it's Castle, Fox, like that's not the worst placeholder shit in the world, even if that's not like the best plays in the world right now.
And now the next question Einstein asked us is actually kind of perfect because it leads us into what you were about to ask me before we got to these questions anyway, Josh, which is he wanted to know where does Şengün rank as a pay-up option? So we could just look at all the pay-up options now and try to figure out where we want to spend up with all of this money that we're getting from the Dallas value.
Yeah, so we've got Giannis at 11K, 20% owned. Cade and Shea are both about 5. Jaylen Brown at 20, Wemby at 20, Alperen Şengün around 15. That's everybody 9K or higher. Are you breaking free with anybody in your exposures right now?
So nobody who is showing up in 40% of lineups when all the other guys are 10 or anything like that. But here's the way that I'll approach this. If I was just playing one lineup and I can only pay up for one guy, I would go towards Giannis because of what we saw last game in terms of we don't know exactly what the minutes would have been, but he was pacing to play upper 30s minutes. And I felt more confident in his playing time. As soon as Rivers said that he's potentially going to be limited, I was like, oh, this guy's a liar. He's just going to play more minutes now. And he was about to play the most minutes he's played the entire season. If it wasn't for the blowout there. So I think people might be a little bit hesitant because Rivers said minutes restriction. He doesn't end up playing a ton of minutes last game, but it was because of the blowout more than anything else. I could just see Giannis going out playing 36 minutes, being the highest scorer on the slate. And people have been like, why did Rivers say he was going to be limited the other day? Because the guy just lies constantly for no reason. He has nothing to gain from it. He just makes shit up. He's done it for forever. We talked about when he first said the other day that Giannis was going to have his minutes restricted. The first thing that came to mind was the Joel Embiid situation from a few years ago. I talked about it on the show where Joel Embiid's questionable on the injury report. A reporter asks him about it before the game. Is he going to be out there? He's like, what are you talking about? The reporter says, well, he's listed as questionable. Rivers says, well, that's news to me. That's nothing I've heard about. He's going to be playing today. So everybody assumes Joel Embiid must be playing today. Game starts. Joel Embiid isn't on the court. He isn't dressed to play. Doesn't end up playing. He has nothing game-based. He just makes shit up for whatever reason. I think Giannis's minutes ceiling is higher than what people think. And if he does happen to play 35 or 36 minutes, he should be the highest projected player on the slate by a decent margin.
I completely agree. I don't know. I wish I had something more to add here, but to me, he looks like the best option to get to if you're going to be paying up for someone. That's the direction. It's certainly not Cade, and it's certainly not SGA for me. The only other guy that I would roll the dice on is Wemby, because he's slowly but surely getting up to that minutes amount where he could just have a disproportionate stock day and really go absolutely insane. That is in the cards. So if it's not Giannis for me, it would be to Wemby in this scenario. I want to ask you something that has nothing to do with the slate today.
Okay.
This is very random and quick, but I got a DM from Ben, so I want to send you on this path. How many people do you think had Bryce Sensabaugh yesterday in the FanDuel jackpot?
Well, he didn't score 50 points. I believe he came the closest anybody's come since they launched it. And my best guess is 0 people.
So Ben and I were talking about, I believe Ben had him, but I could be wrong.
Oh, Ben had him? Well, then one person had him. I didn't realize that Ben took Bryce.
So I said that it was either 1 or 2 to me. You would either get the full bag or it would chop. 9 people had Sensabaugh.
How did you find out how many people had him?
I'm guessing the FanDuel account mentioned it. Ben just DM'd me about it.
Okay. That's way higher than, I mean, I took my guess and said 0. So 9 is way higher than I thought. Well, somebody in chat Chris Hu says that he took Sensabaugh as well.
Yeah.
Did Ben post about it somewhere?
I don't know.
Okay, because that could.
I might be wrong too, but he was messaging me about it last night, so I just took it to mean that like he picked a random dude and it was Bryce Sensabaugh and it was happening, but I could be also wrong. But yeah, I would have never guessed 9.
No,
I would assume you're coming away with like a couple $100,000 in bonus bets at a minimum.
Well,
sorry to derail, but I thought 9 was crazy to me.
It ended up being a fat 0 people winning money, and the and it rolls over unless you just paired it with Sensabaugh overall points, then you printed anyway yesterday.
Yeah, another day you're wrong, but you're close to right, but you're wrong. That far down the list is not the right area to be in.
No,
you could increase your chances of getting it done without having the loss by moving up that list quite a bit further than Walter Clayton Jr.
Yeah, wonder what his points prop closed at yesterday, because they were shorthanded, so I'm sure it went up a little bit. It wasn't something I thought to look at close to the game, but what, maybe like 13 and a half.
Well, it didn't go up after he was ruled he didn't start. Like when that news came out, like it's even worse. It's crazy. It's crazy. How do you feel about the Jaylen Brown ownership today?
He's been incredibly good this year. Incredibly good. He's putting up he's putting up numbers in a way where I've been starting to question who's going to be the better player going forward, Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum, especially with Tatum coming back from, the torn Achilles. It's kind of an interesting thing to think about, and like who's going to have the better career overall. It seemed like this was always going to be Jason Tatum's team, and he was going to be the Batman, and Jaylen Brown was going to be the Robin. But now he's coming off a significant injury. Jaylen Brown does have the finals MVP between the two of them. I do wonder who ultimately finishes with the better resume of the two, if there's some sort of degrade that happens to, Jason Tatum's game when he comes back. But yeah, Brown has just been absurdly good overall for the season. The biggest issue that I have with him, though, is now he's priced in a way where like you have to consider, who do I want to play? Giannis or Jaylen Brown, because there's only $1,000 separating them. So I've got Jaylen Brown in 20% of lineups right now, but if I'm just picking one guy to pay up for, it's very much Giannis for me over Jaylen Brown. Brown's okay, but he doesn't look any different than a lot of these other high-end guys to me. Like Giannis, I think, is a tier of his own, but then you can get somebody like Şengün. We got the question from Einstein about Şengün before. I think Şengün and Jaylen Brown are kind of comparable, but Şengün is $700 cheaper, and he also has half the ownership. So relative to ownership, Brown's just kind of like whatever to me.
I just see him as like a guy that just fits in at the small forward position because he's the only guy that really has it at the top. Because nobody ever gets to Durant, especially on a slate like today. He's 3% owned in a matchup against Oklahoma City, which is not exactly a dream matchup for DFS purposes. I think Jaylen Brown just becomes the default answer of small forward because there's nobody else around him. Like, it's Brown, a 3% owned KD, and the next small forward you get to is J-Dub at 7,700. And then after that, the next small forward you get to is $6,400 Norm Powell. There's just nobody on his corner today. So I think it's just very easy to fill that spot in certain situations with Jaylen Brown. The Wemby piece is weird. I can't get it out of my head that he's going to go insane today.
I went heavy on Wemby the other day and felt really good about it at lock when it came out that he was like 10% owned. And then his minutes just didn't change getting back into the starting lineup. It didn't help either that they just got crushed by OKC in that game, which good for OKC getting on the scoreboard against the Spurs. They're not some sort of unique matchup where they're incapable of beating the Spurs, which I think a lot of people thought that was the case. I remember seeing the betting splits for that game. People were all over the Spurs as 7.5-point underdogs because the Spurs were 3-0 against them for the season, then just not competitive. OKC just absolutely dog walked them. I wish I knew what Wemby's minutes are going to be. For me, I've been a Wemby guy throughout his career for DFS. I'd much rather be early to Embiid than late. I'm not going to play as much of him as I did the other day, though, just because the minutes weren't there in the way I thought they were going to be.
Okay. Anything else you want to touch on for some of these guys at the top end? 'Cause I can't imagine you're really getting any like Cade or Shea.
Yeah, not in a significant way, but as like Şengün, to circle back to what we got asked at the top. So for Şengün, he $9,200, only 12% owned. I think for his upside, he's just under owned. So he's somebody who I want to be playing as a contrarian option, but not anybody who, like, if he was 20% owned, I don't think he'd be as much of a consideration for me. But good owned, low owned tournament, good low owned tournament piece for me, Şengün.
We got a projections update at 639. Ownership update at 641, which is the current time. So let me go ahead and refresh that and get the updated info on here. Not that this should look all that different. Nothing's happened. So this should all be a relatively similar visual here. Let's see. Who haven't we talked about that definitely needs to be talked about?
We got some questions from Discord anybody too, by the way.
Let's hit them.
All right. Oh, and do we have a super chat? Oh, we do. Super chat here as well from Jacob Kuyasa. Probably didn't say that right. DK GPP, Castle or Fox for today? He wants to know, Josh. Castle or Fox? I don't think I have much of either of them.
Yeah, neither. Holy shit. I didn't realize Castle was 20% owned. I prefer Fox given the ownership.
Yeah, neither of them are priorities for me, but Fox if it's a 1v1. And then getting to the Discord questions, Young Metro Boomin asked about top FanDuel plays. I'm rerunning my FanDuel lineups with the update we just got, so I'll get back to you in a second for like individual top options at positions. I see your question there, though. Young Metro Boomin. Win wants to know who's our favorite FanDuel pay-up options. We just talked about the DraftKings pay-up options, but wants to know on the FanDuel side of things. Still Giannis for me.
I assume it's Giannis. I don't know the pay structure right now, so I'm going to take a look at it. Oh, yeah, that's unquestionably still Giannis.
Yeah. Giannis for me. And then we've got thoughts on Walter Clayton Jr. for tonight, Josh.
No. That is just a no.
There's a lot of...
Unless the Jazz rule out like 4 dudes I mean, the Jazz could realistically rule out like 6 dudes in the next hour and 15 minutes, which could make that a bit more appealing. But no, he's 100% you don't play him in any way today. As of right now, at least.
Yeah, there's enough value on the slate where it's a little bit too thin of an option when, I mean, just look at all the value we have on even in that game. I don't even think he's one of my 8 favorite plays from the game he's in.
No, not at all. We got a bunch of super chats. I'm going to start hitting these if you want to.
Yeah, we could jump to the super chats.
Is Filipowski in play today? No.
So keep in mind that we had no Nurkic last night. So you got the big Kyle Filipowski game. He's $5,900 now. He showed up in 1 out of 150 lineups for me on the last run. And rerunning stuff, he's more likely to show up in 0 lineups, I think, than show up in 2 on a next run. So he's not unplayable, but he's not in play either, if that makes sense. Like if you had a bunch of lineups like I ran those Sims before, I had a 1 out of 150 Filipowski. Cool. But yeah, if you're playing 1, 2, 3 lineups, Filipowski shouldn't be in those lineups.
In the last 10 games, the Jazz have played, Nurkic has played 5 of them. In those games, Filipowski played 17 minutes, 4 minutes, 20 minutes, 14 minutes, and 22 minutes. 22 was basically Christmas. So I wouldn't be looking at Kyle Filipowski today, assuming Yusuf Nurkic is in. Lou Dort available today.
Okay.
So there's that. Olrat, if Gafford is out, I think this is a question, or maybe he's telling us he's going to play Cisse over Hardy in the utility in a 50-50.
Hardy over
No.
Cisse for me.
If it's a 50-50, it will never be Cisse. It will 100% be Hardy.
Yeah.
I mean, realistically,
honestly,
Hardy should already be in there, and maybe Cisse is also there, but there is no scenario if you're playing a 50-50 that Hardy isn't in it, assuming he maintains the starting spot.
Yeah, he is, meaning Cisse. If you play him at all today, which, I mean, there's a scenario where he's viable, but it's not as a cash game play. It would be as a tournament play in a very specific scenario where Gafford's out and he's starting. But yeah, for cash games, Hardy's a must play in cash. You absolutely have to play Hardy in cash games.
Correct. Boy, Jorge, playing only 20 lineups in the $18. Besides the Mavs players, who are your top 3 or must 3 players to have? I think we're both going to say Giannis. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll
say Bam for me also at his ownership.
I was going to say another one that I think you'll probably agree with, which would be Colin Gillespie.
Yeah.
I think we got to a pretty good answer there pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think those are all fair.
Not bad. DK, Wiggins in play 20% or less.
Less.
Assuming this is Andrew Wiggins, I'm pretty well indifferent to Andrew Wiggins, but not a guy that I would be like excited to play more today.
Yeah, if the number is have more or less than 20%, I'll say less than 20%.
Okay. What do we got? 6:47. Got about 13 minutes to go. Chat is being next level irritating, which kind of makes me just want to not do this in any way, but fine. You guys got what you wanted. Nuke of the night time. It's live before lock, so we got to do it. There's no other way around it. No Eric for this one, although who knows? Maybe he'll pop up. Daniel Gafford out. Max Christie out. Cooper Flagg out. PJ Washington out.
Cool.
Well, there's your nuke. They just nuked the Mavs.
What was the point of having? Now I have no clue what the point of PJ Washington being questionable for injury management was. Like, I thought maybe it's like, hey, we'll play him if other guys are out, but no, he was just never going to play at all today. So I just finished my lineups, and all this is just nonsense that has to be redone and reworked from the start now. Nuke of the night
talking.
is
I'm about to sneeze.
All right, so. Yeah, so now everything I'm looking for as far as my exposures doesn't matter. None of this is real or accurate. Here's my initial thought, though. Dallas Mavericks desperately in need of any kind of scoring for today. I don't know what his ownership ends up being. It's going to go up a little bit, but I think it's going to be a Klay Thompson day, Josh. Just get him out there, just shoot a bunch of shots, and hopefully they fall today. I was already a little bit overweight to the field to him, and I just assume I don't know for sure because I have to rerun everything. But I assume he's probably going to be in like 30 to 40% of lineups right now.
I had the same thing yesterday for Klay. I was just like, oh, he looks decent in my projections and is like, not all that interesting. I want to get to Klay. So I love the take. I liked it yesterday. It's the same sort of strategy for it today. I'm going to go the direction that you sort of led this off in earlier. He's currently, or at least was, the highest leverage option on today's slate. I love this spot for Bam if he's 7K. We have him as the highest possible leverage dude in our projections in the last run. I am very untrustworthy at this moment of whatever is going to happen at center for Dallas. So at that point, it's like, why not just take this guy that's slowly rounding back into form? couple guys not out there, like, known Jaime Jaquez. Maybe that's a good thing for Bam. It doesn't necessarily, like, they're going to be bringing more Pell Larson. That's more potential opportunities to me for Bam. I want to take that positive leverage. I think Bam Adebayo is your nuke of the night.
All right. So, by the way, I was going to say Bam and then pivoted because we got the Dallas news. I was like, all right, now I want to go with somebody from Dallas who I'm presumably going to be getting more exposure to. But yeah, I mean, I also like Bam a good amount for today. Also, I'll circle back and answer Young Metro Boomin's question. I can handle this one, Josh. Just want to know my favorite plays at each position for FanDuel. So
Sure.
now that I've got things that are going to have to be re-updated, but point guard for me, Brandon Williams. Shooting guard, Colin Gillespie. Small forward, that is presumably going to be Najee Marshall now. Power forward, Giannis. And then center, there's a handful of guys. I will go with Wemby for now at center.
Ooh, I like it.
Going to be easier to spend up for multiple studs in lineups now, too.
For sure. I'm waiting to see if we get an update to projections in while you and I are still live.
And we got another super chat here from Mr. Hill, Delaware. Last man in, Hauser or Barnacle on the Bay? Neither.
Hauser. It's Hauser, but I'd rather just not have Hauser. Like, I think Hauser's a better play than Harrison Barnes, but I also wouldn't want to lock in a 7:30 start Sam Hauser.
Yeah, it's neither. It's neither for today.
Yeah.
Especially with the guys who just got ruled out for Dallas, because that's created more value on the slate.
Yeah, Sam Hauser is whatever interest anyone had in Sam Hauser 10 minutes ago is not, it's less now. For sure.
Same with any fringe value option. They all look worse now because the better value opened up. And the other thing that happens too is, which I kind of said just a second ago, but Wemby, Giannis, Jaylen Brown, these guys all look better now just because it's simply easier to get to them. Even if their projections don't change, they're just easier to fit into lineups.
Yeah, 100%. I just want to see what this is going to be now. Okay, so let me think about the Dallas active roster. Because technically we don't have the status of Cisse or Miles Kelly yet. There was no update to the Dallas injury report in the 645 injury report. So that might clear itself up in the 7.
Just got a projections update, by the way.
Huzzah. So the Cisse status will actually matter a little bit. If he's not around, then we're probably going to be getting 48 minutes of JRE and
Dwight Powell.
Yes, Dwight Powell, a person's name who I legitimately forgot it. Okay, Dallas projections. Najee Marshall for 35 minutes. Giant value. I guess I should sort by value. That's going to be better. Jaden Hardy, 26 minutes, an even bigger value. Brandon Williams, 6.8x, still looking exceptional. Dwight Powell, 27 minutes, 3,500, 6.4x. We'll see where he ends up owned. Ownership should hit in like the next minute or so, but at the very least, that's going to get you some Dwight Powell, and whether or not you want to keep it by the end of it, we'll see. We only have Cisse in for 16 minutes. Klay Thompson, 13% owned at 4,600, 25 minutes. How you feeling?
I feel good about his upside. I don't feel good about the downside of him, but we only play tournaments to look at the ceiling of things. For cash games, then the floor becomes more relevant. But for tournaments, yeah, if Klay comes into the game and knocks down like 2 out of his first 3 shots, then I think it's off to the races with him playing extended minutes.
Allegedly, Cisse is available per Mavs PR. I think we'll be able to find that one out officially in 5 minutes, but appreciate that too. Nice.
All right.
Ownership is up. Let's see it.
Mavs actually given real relevant updates here. Teams are not usually kind enough to do that. Kid Stu left a super chat, although there is no question attached to it. Let's see if I could find something from him in the YouTube chat. DK Tears.
What the fuck is the point of that right now?
Well, I'll read off my.
By the time I get to this and we get through it, we're going to be locked.
Well, I'll
By the way,
read it off
70% ownership to Brandon Williams, 65 to Jaden Hardy, 55 to Najee Marshall, 25 to Clay, 15 to Dwight Powell. All right, I'm in the tiers as well.
To Chris Williams for gifting out 5 YouTube memberships. Here, real quick, I'll read off top tiers options. Tier 1, that's Giannis for me. Tier 2, that's Wemby. Why is Wemby in tier 2? Wemby in tier 2. Tier 3 for me, that is going to be Keontae George. Yeah, tier 4, Bam. We got Bam in tier 4.
Bam.
Yeah. Tier 5, Tyler Hero. Okay. And then finally, tier 6, that'll be Gillespie for me.
Gillespie. Yeah. Cut and dry answers too. Yeah. Because, yeah, that's pretty clean. Dude, Paul Reed was in tier 6 today. Why?
I got so much exposure to Clay. I just reran everything. I mean, I'm just going to upload these lineups because there's only a few minutes left, so I can make changes afterwards. But I got,
of course.
I have 70% of Clay in the first update I did here.
I like it. A lot of people keep going. Why aren't you talking about Caleb Martin? Caleb Martin, no mention. He stinks. 8% owned. Just a guy.
Did get traded for Quentin Grimes, who's considerably better than him because there's a reason Nico Harrison isn't in the NBA running a team anymore. He completely botched what should have been a pretty easy setup that he had there. But yeah, the Martins just doesn't really play a significant role for them there. Let's see. We've got a handful of questions in Discord, Josh. Try to answer as many of these as we can before we hit lock. We've got the Black Mamba wants to know who we think Dallas starts. All right, so Dallas starting lineup.
Brandon Williams, Jaden Hardy, Najee Marshall, Caleb Martin, Dwight Powell.
Yeah. No, I don't think they have to start Martin, but yeah, I think that's one direction for sure. The Light wants to know how much Goodwin do I have on FanDuel? All right, what do I have here of Goodwin? I've got 28% Goodwin on the run I just have, and that's with everything updated right now. So yeah, 28% of them, pretty decent amount, but certainly not as good as the Dallas value.
Sheesh.
JW, DK single entry must-haves for today.
Brandon Williams, Najee Marshall.
I'm gonna say Clay now. I guess I wouldn't call him a must play. He's just a guy I like to have.
Giannis, to me, if I'm picking, because I got to get a pay up in there somewhere.
Gillespie.
Someone also asked you a question in Discord if you have any interest in Khalil Ware, which I'm going to go ahead and say no to.
Yeah, not today. Nowhere in lineups. I get what you're saying, Kuzuna. His price has come down and he does have upside, just not necessarily the slate to be doing it, to be getting to him. Then I'd sign him and say, what am I doing with Caleb Martin? I assume he'll show up in some lineups for me when I do late swaps. I have 0% of him right now, though.
As you should. I mean, the benefit is that it's an 8:30 game. So, if you have it, great. You're probably not going to maintain it by the time you get to that point. But, there's no downside to having it right now because it's in a good spot. If that were a 7 o'clock game, I would scream at everybody to tell you to not do that.
We have him projected as a 0.75 fantasy point per minute guy, just because he's potentially going to be starting and he's cheap. He's if you have him, it's all right, but he's not a couple years ago, he would have been a
Yeah.
priority in this spot. He's just not that guy anymore.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of versions of him today.
We're at lock.
I just don't love these low fantasy point per minute dudes. More than anything. But it doesn't matter now. We are locked, ladies and gents. Greg, anything else you want to add before you and I dip on out of here?
Just like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Check Josh and I and everybody else out over on Tails. You guys know the app is totally free to download. If you haven't downloaded yet, what the hell are you waiting for? I got bets that have been doing really well. I've got my bankroll challenge over on Tails. We started the season same way as last year. Opened the year with a $100 bankroll, placing bets from the portfolio EV recommended plays. Take a handful of them each day, post them up there. And now we're over $400, starting at the $100 mark. So if you guys are looking to build your bankroll and just get some, recommended bet sizes, go follow me there. And then everybody else on the team is over there as well. Josh is posting prize picks content, other betting content. He's also got DFS content that goes up there. And if you really enjoy the experience, do us a favor, leave us a nice 5-star review. We very, very much appreciate it. But yeah, guys, post lock, just as per usual, pay attention to the news and be on the lookout for whatever Dallas does with their starting lineup.
There we go, everybody. Good luck tonight. Have some fun. We're back tomorrow for Friday doing the exact same thing. You guys got an NFL show tomorrow?
Yes, tomorrow morning, Lofty and I will be doing the Sims Tournament Strategy Show. And what happened?
Speaking of NFL tomorrow, I mentioned it on the Strategy Show. Tomorrow, 1 p.m. Eastern Time, the NFL Perfect Lineup live. Myself, Dave Loughran, going to hop on. He's going to set me up with a couple lineups. We're going to build them. We're going to tweak them. We're going to see how they look in the single lineup sim. And then you guys could let us know what you guys want to see for this Saturday slate. Since we're in the playoffs now, we figured we'd do a live version for once. Test it out. So live tomorrow, 1 p.m.
Sounds good. So guys, tune into that. And did you, I'll talk to you about it afterwards.
I'm going to make the event later tonight. I'm going to handle all of that later.
That was gonna be the
if that's the direction you're going.
Yeah. All right, guys. Have a good night. Good luck with your lineups.
Later, y'all.